what is the average salary of an athlete playing in MLS Next Pro, the USL, and Major League Soccer?
I would say the average player in Next Pro, especially if it's a young player, is going to make...
I don't know if you are able to talk about this as well, but what is a typical commission rate for a professional sports agent?
Like here in the States, for example, in USL and in Next Pro.
Hey, what up, say? Yeah, now I rep the O, what you know about the West.
A very warm and hearty welcome to the highly anticipated inaugural episode of the 2026 season of Fernandes Talk. I'm Israel, your host for today's program. And we are absolutely delighted to be here together to have a truly great and engaging chat with our special guest, Chris Peralta. He's a FIFA football agent dedicated to guiding the next generation of athletes, soccer players, and coaches in North America. It's a pleasure. Chris Peralta, a very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much in advance for graciously accepting this invitation today.
Obrigado a você pro convite.
That is truly awesome. For those in our audience who might not have had the pleasure of meeting Chris Peralta yet, would you be so kind as to give us a brief but comprehensive introduction to yourself and your background? Who is Chris Peralta?
O Chris Peralta é uma pessoa que desde muito cedo gostava muito do futebol. Eu cresci numa região dos Estados Unidos que o futebol não era o esporte mais popular, sabe? Então, para mim sempre foi um esporte que eu gostei muito. Meu pai jogou profissional no país natal dele, Honduras. Tenho um primo também que acabou jogando com a seleção nas Olimpíadas. Fato, ele jogou contra a seleção do Brasil nas Olimpíadas no Rio. Então, eu tenho uma foto dele. Eu acho que ele contra o Neymar. Então, e depois ele chegou a jogar no Rangers. E na minha família sempre foi uma família que sempre a gente estava reunidos, era para assistir futebol, sabe? Então, sempre foi uma paixão para mim. Eu, como jogador, na verdade não gostava muito de treinar, sabe? Eu gostava de jogar, mas não era um treinador sério para seguir meu desenvolvimento e tentar jogar a um nível profissional.
What was your position?
Zagueiro, sim. Então, quando eu acabei no high school, né, aqui nos Estados Unidos, eu aceitei uma vaga numa universidade para estudar, que é Sport Administration, que é basicamente negócios, mas tendo que ver mais com diferentes esportes. E aí aprendi um pouco mais de trabalhar em operações, trabalhar como treinador, diferentes departamentos que fazem parte de um clube profissional, sabe? Depois, quando eu acabei, eu tinha uma só proposta para trabalhar de um trabalho, sabe? E era para trabalhar no Houston Dynamo. Então eu mudei pelo Houston no 2016 e desde esse ano estou aqui. Então já levo quase 10 anos morando na cidade.
How was JogaSG Group founded?
I didn't know as much about the agent industry until I started meeting more and more agents and realizing the global impact it had on so many players, coaches, clubs. And part of being an agent is, yes, it's helping with the contracts, but I think what most people fail to realize is it's everything off the field, right? Mm-hmm. It's when the players are not in their best moment. It's when they're not rated by the current manager, when the club wants to send them on loan or transfer them, even if it's not what the player wants. And so I think a lot of that, what I learned early on, is a lot of that is what goes into helping a player become successful, because I think it's very easy to represent a national team player. Everyone wants him. Everyone's calling you. It's harder to represent the player that maybe falls out of the national team or isn't nowhere near the radar of the national team, and to actually help them reach their potential and become that national team player. And I think that's what Joga represents. And I've had multiple cases of similar situations of those players that have gone on trials, have been rejected by all the clubs near their region, and then one club, 1,000 miles away from their home, takes a chance on them, and that's where they become a professional. And there's a lot of stories like that, right? I think Hichali-san is also or Rafinha, sorry, is one of the stories like that, right? How many clubs rejected him in Brazil? How many people basically told him no, and he did what he could to finally open the door. But there were people beside him along the way that didn't give up and saw the talent that he had. And so that's kind of how Joga was born, and that's I try to continue to keep that same the same values and the same mission of helping players regardless of what their current level is. If I see the potential, if I see that they have the tools, they just need guidance and they need patience sometimes. That's the main reason for Joga, and it's why I love doing what I do.
Who are the biggest players represented by GS Group?
Jogadores, eu diria o Daniel Nunes, he's a player that has been in with the Mexican national team right now. Actually, he's with USA under 18s. He signed his first contract at 15 years old with Portland Timbers. And he's a player, similar situation. He's from California, 2 hours outside of Los Angeles. And Los Angeles has it's a big football culture, right? But he didn't really get the opportunities, and he went on trials, but he didn't get the yes that he wanted from the clubs near him, the professional clubs near him. And it wasn't until he went to Portland where the club saw something, right? And he ended up becoming their youngest signing in club history at 15 years old. So he is one of them. Another one that I have is Dylan Borso. He plays at Chicago Fire. He's a winger, but he's played right back as well. He's a 2006 player. He played one semester in college at Wake Forest, and after having a very good semester, got a homegrown deal, is what they're called here in the States. So he's one that's also with the national team camp at the moment in Arizona. And I would say the other one that I'm really excited about is a young goalkeeper named Connor Dale. Connor is 15 years old, but right now in preseason, he's training with the first team. He's a goalkeeper for the United States national team for the 2010 age group. Good size, great with the ball at his feet, which is important for the modern goalkeeper. And just he's one of the most mature kids that I've ever seen at 15 years old in terms of the mentality and the emotional intelligence that he has. So I think there's a lot that I can name, but I think those are the three that at the moment stand out to me.
What are the main mistakes your players make when trying to get attentions of agents and clubs?
I think the main mistake they make is they try to compare themselves to other players, maybe that they know or that they see, and they say, "Oh, well, I'm better than him. I should get a chance," or "Oh, he's not very good, and so why can't I also be in his position?" But they fail to realize that a lot of this comes down to opportunity. It comes down to performance, and it also comes down to a little bit of luck. You need a little bit of luck sometimes, regardless of who you are as a player. There's so many players that have played at the highest levels that can tell you that, a lot of situations that happened with them, how they got their first minutes in the first team, or how they, ended up getting a chance is because of situations that happened. They were prepared for the situation. They performed well, and a little bit of luck helped them, give them the final push to get to where they are too.
How important is personal brand building for a professional football player?
I think The brand of a player, I think, is very important in how they market themselves, because I think now, and based off of my experiences, clubs don't sign players just based off of what their playing ability is. I think you need more now in the modern game. You need mentality. You need to be good in the locker room. You need to be a teammate that other teammates want to have around. You need to have discipline, and you need to have work ethic. And I think the more you market yourself and the more you have a brand as a player that is, yes, I'm a great player, but I'm a better human. I think that also that helps you. The more you show your versatility as a player and as a person, I think the higher your chances of clubs taking chances on you.
What characteristics do you look for in a new player to be represented by GS Group?
The main characteristics that I look for are mentality. That's more important than everything. And I think mentality, it doesn't mean I'm the best. It means that I understand what I'm lacking and what is a weakness, and I need to turn into a strength. I'm willing to do what it takes to turn that into a strength. I'm willing to have the work ethic. I'm willing to work on myself, knowing that I'm not a finished project. I think that's very important. I think humility as well, because there's a lot of good players around the world. You live in a country where it's rich in talent. Every major league goes to recruit in Brazil, right? And same thing is happening with the United States. There's so many players in the United States that end up getting recruited. But I think having the humility to know when you're advancing and you're becoming a great player, but knowing you still have more work to do, I think that's also very important. And you don't really see that with time, which is why I try to take time to get to know a lot of the families, a lot of the players, and I want to see how they respond to certain things that happen. And the third one that I would say is just a combination of tactical and technical qualities. I would say it's you can work on your first touch and your techniques all the time, but I think one thing that I'm starting to see a trend of is there's a lot of young players that they want to play FIFA, but they don't want to actually watch games, right? And I think watching games, it can help you, aside from obviously watching Premier League, La Liga, the Italian league, all these things, Bundesliga. It can also help you develop in your position, right? If you're a right back, you should be watching, every time you watch a game, look at what the right backs do. Look at what the mistakes that they make, the way that they fix their mistakes, their mentality with certain things. I think that's also something that it doesn't take a lot, but it helps you improve your own game. And you watch a high level game at the same time. So maybe your favorite team playing, for example. So it doesn't need to seem like work, but it's something a small thing that you can do instead of playing the video game that can allow you to improve.
What qualities do you expect to see in a player's highlight video?
I think it depends on the positions.
Yes.
But for example, for a center back, you want to see leadership. You want to see that they communicate, and it's hard to see that on video, right? Because you can't really hear them, but you can see the way that they instruct teammates, the way that they is the center back the one that makes the line go forward. Are they the ones that are instructing where to press, where to force the player? That's one thing for a center back, for example. For a winger, I would say creativity is one thing, but at the same time, again, the modern winger needs to also be willing to defend, which I think is more and more you're starting to see. And so, yes, are they good 1v1 on the ball, but are they willing to defend? Like, a winger, if they're creative and if they have confidence, they're not going to be perfect. If they take a player on 10 times, they won't win all 10 times. But the one time that you don't get past them, are you going to work hard off the ball to win the ball back, right?
Yes.
For a striker, for example, I want to see movement, right? Are you a one-dimensional striker? Do you have to just get the ball in behind, or can you combine? Can you hold the ball up? Like how many different systems can you play in based on, how well-rounded you are as a striker? So for the position, it changes, but I think every position has something that most clubs say that's a non-negotiable for them in terms of a trait.
Yeah. What is the ideal length of a good highlight?
Personally, I typically will look at a video around 2 to 3 minutes
Yes.
at the very least. And then if it's something that has grabbed my attention, and if it looks like an interesting player, then I'll watch a full 5 minute video, right?
Yes.
Depending on how interesting the player looks and the different types of elements the player is showing you in the video.
How did you get Fernandes highlights?
How did I meet Fernandez highlights, or how did I find it? I think it was Instagram, honestly. Um, and I was just looking for, I was doing my highlight videos on my own just because I had access to Y Scout. But it got to the point where it was one of those things where I wanted to, you know, give it to like a third party to do, to free up time for myself, but also to have a better quality, better product quality, because it does matter, the product quality and how the video looks. And I found you on Instagram, messaged you. Obviously, it helps that I speak Portuguese, so the communication was simple. And yeah, I think you've done probably over 15 videos for me at this point. So
What is the next steps for Chris and the JS group?
next steps, and one of the things that I'm focusing on this year is the women's game. There's a very big rise in the women's game in terms of the investment in teams, and I think the level of a lot of leagues is increasing, and just how much more professional the women's leagues are now compared to how they were 5 years ago. As an agent, it's enticing in a way, because you start to see that, well, like there's a lot of potential now with transfers, with players, going to play overseas, with Americans from overseas coming back here into our league, which is considered one of the best leagues in the world for the women. I actually did my first NWSL signing this offseason. So in January, a center back named Moran Gasic, she signed for Racing Louisville. So that's my first client in NWSL, and I have a few others that I also am starting to work with, and some of them are doing preseason with NWSL clubs. Some of them will sign in another league here in the States. But I think the women's game is one part that I'm focusing on a little bit more, and definitely paying a lot of attention to.
What is the average salary of an athlete playing in MLS Next Pro, the USL, and Major League Soccer?
So Next Pro doesn't have a minimum or a maximum. So the reality is a team can pay you whatever. I would say the average player in Next Pro, especially if it's a young player,
Yeah.
is going to make $2,500 to $3,000 a month. And they cover the cost of your housing. So you get an apartment as well that you typically share with another teammate. That's Next Pro.
Yes.
In USL, I'll do the two different leagues in USL. So League One and
Yes.
Championship. I would say League One, the average is around 2,000 or so, plus they pay your apartment as well. And for Championship, the average is, I would say, closer to 4,000 a month, and then they also pay your apartment as well. So all the leagues will cover your apartment. Some of them, if you want to live by yourself, they'll give you extra money on top of your salary called a housing stipend to cover your own apartment or to rent a house if you have a family. But those are the averages. And then in MLS, the minimum salary has gone up every single year in MLS. So the average is tough to tell you, just because there's Messi who makes 15 million, and then there's players that make the minimum that's 88,000 this year. I would say for the international player, because we have a lot of Brazilians that play here, right? The average international player would make around 350, 400,000 gross per year.
I don't know if you are able to talk about this as well, but what is a typical commission rate for a professional sports agent? For example, we have a close acquaintance here who is currently studying to become a licensed FIFA agent. For him to become a truly successful agent in this field, one important question that he recently raised is, what is the average commission one can expect? Or do you find that you work more intensively when you facilitate the sale of a professional player? How exactly does this intricate financial commission process function? Specifically regarding the transfer between the club and the agent, if you could provide us with a comprehensive and detailed summary of the situation.
Yeah, I would say the standard is the 10% that everyone hears about. Depending on some leagues, like here in the States, for example, in USL and in Next Pro, they do 5%. They do half. And so some players, charge the player the extra 5% to make 10. For me, if it's a young player, I don't charge them the extra 5%. But typically that's the case. So it's either 5 or 10%. I haven't seen anything higher than that. And then in terms of transfers, yes, transfers typically can generate you more in terms of commissions. But a lot of the times, I think everyone has the false perception that you do a transfer that's $10 million and, okay, you make 10% of that, right? That's not the reality, because when teams pay transfer fees, they spread it out over years. And so even when you see like Flamengo sells a player to the Premier League for 40 million, they're not getting a $40 million check today.
Yeah.
They're getting maybe 5 million right now, and then another 5 million that's paid next year. They spread out the payments over the length of the contract of the player. And so even if you do a deal, let's say you do a good commission or a good transfer, you're still receiving your payment in years, right? And then also you have to deduct taxes from the payment. And so it's not the millions of dollars that everyone thinks that it is. So that's one common misconception with new agents, at least.
Desde já eu agradeço pela atenção, você que assistiu até aqui esse episódio. Espero que você tenha gostado, espero que você tenha tirado todas as suas dúvidas. Nós vamos deixar abaixo da descrição os contatos, as redes sociais do Chris, para, se você se interessar, você possa seguir eles nas redes sociais. Enfim, e se você ficou com alguma dúvida, alguma questão e queira deixar, pode deixar nos comentários aqui que nós vamos responder também. E espero que você fique ligado para os próximos episódios. Nós vamos continuar esse quadro para 2026. Espero que você tenha gostado. E eu queria agora abrir o microfone aqui para deixar o Chris se despedir. E mais uma vez já agradecendo a tua presença, por ter nos recebido, Chris, por ter te separado esse tempo. Muito obrigado.
Oh, thank you for giving me the platform, and hopefully I was able to add answer some questions and also just give some more context to the world that we work in, right? Which there's a lot of different parts of the industry that people see on TV, but they don't see the behind the scenes. So hopefully I was able to provide more context and especially teaching people about the game in North America too.
Obrigado, pessoal, e até o próximo episódio. Valeu!
Hey, what up, say? Yeah, now I rep the O, what you know about it?